Hey guys, this is Grandmaster Eugene Perlstein for iChess.net, and I want to share with you some of my best games from the recent Reykjavik Open, which, as you might have heard, is a very prestigious tournament in Iceland where I finished fourth. So today I want to share with you how a Grandmaster thinks and plays, especially playing a low-rated player. And in this game, I want a really simple game which didn't involve a lot of effort, but I used Grandmaster psychology and understanding of chess to outplay my lower rated opponent. So let's start. So I'm playing white and I play c4. My opponent is, I believe he's from England, Roy Cumming. He's 2155. And, not a high-rated player, but nevertheless very dangerous in an open tournament, and I have to be careful. So c4, knight f6, g3. So you may wonder, why am I playing this opening? Keep in mind, I actually don't want to enter with my opponent any kind of opening debate. I want to just play chess. Well, if you actually saw my videos, and I did many videos for iChess earlier, you know that I love to play Accelerated Dragon. Well, if you notice, Accelerated Dragon is an opening for black, where black plays e4, c5, and then g6. Well, look at that. I played c4, now I play g3, and if white plays e5, I'm going to get my beloved Accelerated Dragon with up a tempo. That's great news, right, guys? But my opponent had other plans. He plays g6, same idea, bishop g2, bishop g7, knight c3, c5. So this move indicates to me that he's playing very symmetrical, right? Kind of logical chess, stopping me from playing d4. Let's see what I do next. Knight f3, castles, castles. So in these kind of positions, it's very important that I am still keeping an eye for the center. And after his logical move, knight c6, everybody may say, boring, I don't want to play chess like that. Well, guess what? White can and should change the nature of the position. If you play quiet move like d3, it's playable, but you're not going to get an opening advantage. Or very likely you will get a small advantage, but really not significant. The right way to play here is what I did in the game. This move d4. And after pawn takes with the knight, knight takes, queen takes, I can at least try to claim somewhat of an opening advantage. Keep in mind, it's very difficult for him to ever play d5. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces control that square. e5 is never played in these types of structures with the bishops here. So that means long-term, white can actually gain an upper hand. So he plays d6, simply queen d3, queen to a5. He clearly did not read my book, Chess Openings Explained for Black. Why? Well, the thing is, since I play the Maratze bind, obviously I play the Accelerated Dragon, I have to be ready for the Maratze bind. By the way, the bind is when white puts the pawns like that. It's actually in black's interest to force me, with this move bishop f5, to play e4. I'm going to lock up my bishop, even though I create two strong pawns protecting my knight. Now with a simple bishop e6, he can start to maneuver around the knight, attacking my queen, and temporarily the bishop is disabled. This is a big fight, and this is the opening that I recommended in my black book. You can go to chessopeningsexplained.com, get the book, and take a look for yourself. But my opponent simply plays this move queen a5. Obviously not a mistake, but now white has to be careful. For instance, what's the most logical move? Well, obviously bishop to d2. Now the idea is to play knight d5 and have a very nice discovered attack on the queen. But here he has a very cool idea. Queen h5, and let's say, for instance, I don't know, I play b3 or rook c1, I don't know, any kind of logical looking move. Now, knight g4 is a very powerful idea, threatening mate. So I have to play h3 or h4, and after this, hitting the queen and the pawn, I am actually in big trouble. So yes, I can play h4 and still be in the game, but this is not what I had in mind. Honestly, I don't want to give him any counterplay. So the first question as a grandmaster, right, guys, and you kind of want to put yourself into that mind frame, I'm going to give you a hint how grandmaster thinks. How do I stop my opponent from getting any counterplay? Obviously, the counterplay is bringing the queen to h5. So this is called prophylactic thinking in chess. Highly, highly instructive concept. If you've never heard of that, you should just pause there and really delve on this, because this is one of the most important concepts in chess. Prophylactic thinking. What is my opponent going to do next? What is his plan? What is his threat? All of these questions are part of the same thing. So obviously, I already know queen is coming to h5. And now, if you put yourself in the right frame of mind, you will find the move for white. So if you need to think a little bit, go ahead and pause the video. And the move is h3. Forever stopping queen h5. Yes, it's actually still possible to play queen h5, but it's not everybody's cup of tea to put the queen on h4, which really is the only logical square. Now, some of you may even be scared of this sacrifice. Obviously, there is a mate threat, but generally speaking, when you see at least 2-3 ways to stop mate, this should be relatively safe. Let's count how many ways we can stop mate. 1, that's good enough usually. 2, and obviously 3. Well, that's obviously good enough. So this is actually not dangerous at all. So he did not want to do this. He plays bishop e6. And now that we've secured our king, now look what happens next. Bishop d2. He has to get the queen out of there. b3 protecting my pawn. Knight d7. And now, once again, the question that we should ask ourselves, what is his threat? The question is very simple. He wants to play knight c5, hitting the queen. Remember, ask yourself that question. It's actually not a serious threat at all. There is nothing we need to do about it. I just simply play rook to c1. That's the cool thing about it. If there is nothing to be done about your opponent's threat, it's not a dangerous threat, you can simply ignore it and execute your own ideas. So he plays this move knight to e5, hitting my queen. All right, not a big deal. I have many ways to retreat. I decided to put the queen on e3. Queen b1 would have been also flexible move, but I wanted to kind of keep my queen eyeing both of these diagonals, especially this pawn. All right, so knight b5 and knight d5 are kind of ideas in these positions. So he plays queen d7, just getting out of the way. But the drawback for black is the queen is actually not well placed on a5, nor on d8, nor on d7. The reason is, after simple king h2 protecting the pawn, knight c6, and rook d1, you guys clearly see the rooks are putting pressure on the open files. Queen is not safe anywhere. All right, so once everything is protected, I can start my attack. He plays rook here, bishop e1, getting ready for that final assault. So now c5 is a big threat. He has to stop it. And now, again, the opening is more or less over, right? We have to find the plan. Can you guys look at this position and evaluate it and find the plan for white? And you don't want to play anything risky. Like if you even consider pushing the pawns next to your king, this or this is definitely not what I had in mind. Okay, you can think about pushing the pawns over here, but the c pawn gets weak. So you obviously don't want to push the pawns. You actually don't want to push the pawns anywhere. So the key here is conceptual. What is this pawn chain allowing you to do? Especially against this kind of dragon-like setup. Well, the key here to understand is outpost. This game is all about outpost. And in this position, this is the most, the greatest square for the knight. And that's what I played, knight d5. He can take, obviously he can take, but that's very much a concession. First of all, I can take with the pawn. Second of all, I can take with the bishop. And during the game, I would debate which one I would take, but in either case, what do I have? 2 bishops. That's right, guys. 2 bishops are worth a little bit more than bishop and knight. Precisely how much, it depends, but arguably half a pawn more. If your opponent has no counterplay, the 2 bishops on both sides of the board will make a difference. So this is very important grandmaster thinking. You always want to get a little advantage, especially if it's two bishops. So since he doesn't take my knight, he plays h5. Again, I'm thinking, what is his threat? Is this really such a dangerous threat? Probably not. So I play f4. Now, if he plays h4, I could, of course, take the free pawn, but really, the main idea is to play g4. The bishop is completely stuck. This guy is coming next, and I am simply going to be pawn up. So little by little, black is running out of moves. And if you see grandmaster games, especially against lower-rated players, that's a lot of times what happens. Opponents, lower-rated opponents, already in a difficult position, very hard for them to come up with a plan. My opponent plays bishop f5. All right, no threats, simply bishop c3. Now, the thinking is the following. What is my worst piece? Well, this is an excellent piece, so is the bishop. My queen's doing pretty good, the rooks are doing well. The bishop on e1 looks a little bit stuck, right? Doesn't have a lot of options. This is an excellent piece, and look what I'm doing. I'm trading my worst piece for one of his better pieces, maybe his best piece. And if the bishops are traded, what's going to happen is his king gets super, super weak. If this pawn is ever gone, if he ever goes here, knight f6 is going to be game over. So my opponent didn't want to do that, and he makes a really bad move, which is a huge concession, f6, avoiding the trade, but look what happens over here. His pawn structure is utterly ruined, and the bishop on g7 is stuck for the rest of the game. So again, I haven't really won the battle. Materially, we're balanced. By little, I'm winning by squares, by space, by pawn structure. And eventually, accumulation of these little things will result in either material victory or maybe perhaps a great attack or a better endgame. So now I play queen d2, simply regrouping. Bishop here. Again, what is his threat? Possibly he wants to use the spin, right, guys? Maybe even play this move. Well, here I simply play knight e3, hitting the bishop, bishop back. Again, the f6 weakened the pawn on g6, so I find the target, queen d3, king here. And now I really like my next move. I'm not in a hurry, right, guys? He's utterly paralyzed. So what do? h4. This is a typical grandmaster-like move. I don't even want to think about this counterplay, right? If I take, he takes, who knows what's going to happen here. With this pawn move, I sort of seal the king side. Yes, I do weaken that square, but the only piece that can really damage me is the knight, who is never end up going to g4 because of the f4 pawn. So very important to remember this. So he plays knight d8, very passive move. Now I play bishop b2, finally getting ready to ask my opponent, what are you going to do next? I'm just little by little improving, opening up my rook somewhat, getting ready to push my pawns perhaps, or getting the knight back into the game. So many different ideas. He plays king g7, probably getting ready to activate the knight, and I immediately use this opportunity to ask another question. That pawn on g6 looks awfully weak. Why can't you protect it? Show me, rather, how are you going to protect it? Because that pawn can only be protected either with the bishop or the queen. So he plays bishop f7, and now another logical move. Knight comes back right back to that outpost, pointing to the black king. You know what? These defenses around you are shaky, and if the queen ever gets there, there may be some massive sacrifices coming in. So this is already a difficult position. Taking the knight is obviously bad for many reasons I described earlier, and he plays the move e5. Well, when your opponent plays such an active move in a very passive position, there has to be some kind of a trigger. I call it spider sense. If you've seen the movie Spider-Man, Spider-Man has a sense. You know, at the tip of his fingertips, he's sensing something went wrong, right? Danger, danger. Well, in this position, something went wrong for black. This pawn move is weakening a lot of key squares. And look at my bishop. Look at my knight. There has to be something. So why don't you guys think about this position? Maybe you can come up with an idea. And I actually executed a very nice sacrifice. Not a difficult one, but the concept here is also the d file is pretty weak. So once the d file is weak, there has to be some tactical ideas. Again, take a moment or two or three, pause the video, try to really calculate things out. Here, white has a beautiful sacrifice. All right, and the move here is knight takes f6. And keep in mind, my opponent at this point is in terrible time pressure. All of these moves weren't easy for him to make. He had no active plan, whereas my moves were much simpler. I actually was able to calculate this out to realize my advantage is going to be pretty sizable. I sacrifice a piece, but I get 1. 2, obviously he can't take because he's going to lose the queen. And 3 pawns. I played this really interesting move. This pawn is going away anytime soon, but queen e3 is a little flashy move. I'm not even sure if it's the best move. I could have easily taken, and I'm not sure if I want to take the rook actually. I could take the pawn. I could also play queen e3 here. Basically, any move gives me a winning advantage. So let me just show you what I did instead. I did here the move queen e3 with the idea that sooner or later he's going to have to give up the queen, which he does immediately. Takes, takes, check. And now in severe time pressure, he makes what I would say a losing move. In a difficult position, he finds the way to get the king under serious attack. That's not the good move. King c7 allowing me to open up the game. I should mention that king e7 keeps better defensive chances for him. With accurate play, white still has some work ahead of him, because keep in mind, my queen is not free. I've got queen for rook, bishop, and knight. Well, usually that kind of combination is sufficient, but also I got a couple pawns, and that's important. The couple pawns will help me. Anyways, so he walks right into my attack. Now the key here is attack, attack, attack. And this is kind of an exercise that I want for everyone to use. How can you launch the deadly attack against the king? So make sure you think about this for a little bit. If you need more time, pause the video. And the move is c5 exclam. Just getting the rook involved, right, guys? So he plays here, check, king takes, and now, very important move, queen e3 check. Notice that the king cannot go to a5. Queen takes a7 is game over. So he has to block, and now due to the pin, he loses the knight. b4, pawn takes, check, king here, and now just being able to finish him off. Accurate moves are required. I play queen a3. Just make sure that you realize that pawn takes check. Looks like it's a discovered attack on the rook. Actually doesn't work. Queen takes, right back, checking the king is game over, because then my rook is free to roam around. Anyway, so he plays here. Again, desperation attempt, setting up a little trap that takes, the bishop's coming to f4, and I lose the game. But obviously I'm not going to fall for it, right? So instead, I'm the one with the attack. Check here, rook d1. And now I could, of course, take the pawn, but I made kind of this quiet move, realizing he has no check. This bishop is about to fall, and this is game over. So what did we learn from this game? Well, first of all, I got a really comfortable advantage out of the opening. I used prophylactic thinking to completely shut down my opponent's counterplay. Then little by little, I started to improve my position, and he didn't have an active plan. And eventually, under pressure, he collapsed. And that's a typical example how a grandmaster wins against a lower rated player. All right, guys, I'll show you more games in the future. Stay tuned and subscribe to our channel. Thank you very much. This is Grandmaster Eugene Perelstein. Goodbye.